She Will, which is a very atmospheric psychological chiller from Charlotte Colbert, who is French-British. This arrives with the endorsement of Dario Argento, as we know, the Italian maestro of horror, who Dario Argento presents, and he gets an exec producer credit. And there's been an endorsement from Alfonso Cuarón, who said it sits in the great tradition of psychological horror films. So that is, that's quite the endorsement. The film stars Alice Krige, who is an actress, Veronica Gent, who is now a kind of fading star in the way of like Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard. An opening intercuts scenes of surgery, of mastectomy surgery, with scenes of her putting on her makeup and saying, every mask has a purpose. She's going to a retreat in Scotland where she wants to recuperate. When she gets to the retreat, it turns out that she will not be recuperating alone as she thought. She's told, yes, the solo retreats only run in the summer. They alternate with the silent yoga. Instead, there are a group of people there led by Rupert Everett as an art teacher who is kind of wrangling everybody and tells them that the charcoal, which they will be drawing their drawings outside, is particularly great because it comes from this very land which is fertile and magical because so many women were burned as witches on this land that their ashes then went into the land and apparently gave it healing properties. So we know that there is this kind of history of the persecution of witches. Meanwhile, in Veronica's own past is the spectre of a film that she made when she was 13, directed by Malcolm McDowell's character, Eric Hathborn, who is about to be made a Sir and is about to be revisiting that film, and to whom she has flashbacks of a clearly deeply unpleasant and traumatizing relationship, which is hinted at. He, meanwhile, is being celebrated, but also interrogated on television. Here's a clip.
Do you ever feel that you went too far?
Oh, no. Of course I don't. No, I don't think I went too far. I think there are no limits to the exploration of the human soul.
Let me rephrase that. In the course of your career, were you ever brought to do things that were unlawful?
Absolutely not. I mean, no. And by the way, I know what you're doing here. Now move on.
Hold on. Veronica Gent was 13 when she made Navajo Frontier with you.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely. She was just... I made her into something.
Well, your relationship with her has been described.
Please, don't make assumptions about that. It was a completely different era. No, what I'm saying is, we were very close. We had a special bond.
Malcolm McDowell is, he's not on screen for a lot of them, but when he's there, it's terrific. So there are two sort of stories. There is a historical abuse of women's story, and then there is this kind of Me Too era story, which is just gradually emerging from the edges. And at the center of it is this central character of somebody who is recuperating from a mastectomy operation and finding herself in a position which she describes as, oh my God, this is a nightmare. But what actually happens is that she starts to become empowered by the land around her. She starts to have dreams that appear to have a kind of vengeful quality to them. And there is this kind of ambivalence about what's happening, whether it's happening in the real world, whether it's happening in her mind. Charlotte Colbert said of the story, and I think this is very good. She said, it's a psychological horror about a woman's expunging of her trauma through dreams. It's about revenge, the power of nature, the unconscious, and the way we carry with us the muscle memory of all those who came before and all those who will come after. Now, that is obviously a very, very broad brief. What I think is impressive about the film is that it manages to wrestle that very broad brief into something which is peculiarly personal and is an awful lot to do with singular details. So you watch a character in whom you invest enormously because it's a great central performance, a really intense central performance. And you get to understand that their past and present are coexisting, and you get to somehow intuit that something about the landscape into which she has gone is feeding into her past and possibly her future. Now, there are obvious echoes of Shirley Jackson's The Haunting of Hill House, which is a story about somebody who goes to a house which is haunted, and the haunting turns out to be them. That's not a plot spoiler. That's kind of the root of The Shining. And I mean, Stephen King himself basically said Haunting of Hill House is kind of the uber text of all of those. There's also a really deeply scrungy, I think you heard it there, soundscape. The film feels like the ground beneath it is creeping up on you. And in fact, there are some very Cronenbergian moments in which the ground is quite literally doing that. There is a brilliant score by Clint Mansell, whose work I've loved for ages, but who manages to kind of mix the elements of sort of history and vocal chanting with something which is much more sort of scrungy and crackly and blends very, very well with the sound design. And the whole film has a really... It's kind of like a fairy tale air to it. It's like a fable or a fairy tale. It's a story that works on an allegorical level, to some extent, but it works because you're drawn into the world of this central character. And I thought it was really impressive. I mean, okay, there are some things about it that don't quite work. Every now and then the narrative ties itself up slightly too much, and there are little comedic elements in it that I'm not entirely sure work. I mean, the Rupert Everett character is very kind of campy in a very comedic way. And I'm not entirely sure that works for the film, but these are really minor things. I've really thought that Alfonso Cuarón was right. It is in that tradition of psychological chills in which it's all to do with atmosphere. It's all to do with the way in which you are drawn into it viscerally. And I thought it was really terrific. And I would advise people to see it, and see it in a cinema, see it on a big screen with a big sound system.